Korea has launched a missile, and this one appears to be new and more powerful, with the potential to reach the United States mainland. South Korean and Japanese officials say the intercontinental ballistic missile launched almost directly vertical on Thursday. It traveled upward for 86 minutes, reaching a height of more than 4,300 miles before falling into the sea. The test came as a South Korean delegation visited leaders in Washington and while North Korean fighters are showing up in Russia.
We now assess that there are some 10,000 North Korean soldiers in total in Russia. They fully intend to use these forces in frontline operations.
The U.S. and South Korea have called on North Korea to withdraw those troops.
The rest of the world keeps on turning and in some cases burning. The Middle East and Ukraine are both at war, of course, with no end in sight. And now a new serious security threat has just emerged in East Asia. The world's most notorious rogue nation, North Korea, is flexing its military muscles today and threatening the United States. The Hermit Kingdom says its leader, Kim Jong-un, ordered an intercontinental ballistic missile test last night. The missile reportedly flew for 86 minutes and landed in the water off North Korea's coast. Now, this would be the longest ever flight of a North Korean missile. And with what appears to be unprecedented thrust capabilities, those missiles could now theoretically reach anywhere in the U.S. mainland. The timing is notable. We are less than a week away from electing our next president of the United States, and the U.S. announced today it has confirmed that there are 10,000 North Korean soldiers in Russia. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said he expects those soldiers to be entering combat in Ukraine in the coming days.
It's desperate. Putin has been throwing more and more Russians into a meat grinder of his own making in Ukraine. Now, he's turning to North Korean troops, and that is a clear sign of weakness.
Now, all along, there's been speculation that this dark alliance between two gangster governments might involve some sort of swap of Russian missile technology for North Korean manpower. And while the United Nations roundly condemned today's missile launch, traditionally, Kim Jong-un has regarded international law with about as much disdain as he approaches human rights or even his responsibility just to feed his own people. If anything, I guess we should be grateful that this particular dictator is not a religious fanatic fixated on martyrdom, but instead a man with secular tastes who loves NBA basketball, Hollywood movies, and fine cognac. Joining us now with more is former U.S. Ambassador to NATO Kurt Volker and retired U.S. Air Force Commander and military analyst Major Glenn Ignazio. Ambassador, what do you make of the timing here? Why conduct this missile test now, just days ahead of the U.S. election? Is it coincidence, or is there a message here?
Well, it's clearly a message, and in fact, I would say there are multiple messages. One of them is that this North Korea-Russia partnership is real. So yes, North Korea is not only providing troops, but they're providing the bulk of Russia's artillery, the shells, for Russia's war against Ukraine, and they're getting something in return. They're trying to make a point before the election that, hey, we're still here and you have to deal with us too, and we can threaten you. It is a point about weakness of the current administration and basically a threat about this period between the election and inauguration of the next president. And it should remind us, too, that it's not only North Korea and Russia, but also China buying goods and providing liquidity for Russia, and Iran providing technology, drone technology for Russia as well. So this is a much bigger axis, if you will, of cooperation among actors, all of whom want to weaken the United States.
Yeah, Ambassador, it's interesting because these four players here have nothing in common except their antipathy for the United States. Like they have wildly different ideologies, agendas, but they're united in their hatred of the United States.
That's exactly right. And they're determined to take advantage of what they see as a period of U.S. weakness.
So, Major, there have been many missile tests in North Korea in the past that have flopped. We've done lots of stories on the missile goes up and then the missile just tips over and goes down. This one did not flop. Did Russia provide technological assistance to make this a success, do you think?
Well, the analysis will come out, but I believe so. And the reason for it is it's a big jump. It's over as significant as far as 90 minutes practically in flight. It's about 1,000 miles short of the mainland. But the biggest thing is for absolutely what we're saying is that they are giving Russia the manpower, which is the one thing that really can tip the scales with the Ukrainian conflict. And they're going to get something back. And one of the things about this is the ICBM technology. And one of the difficult parts is the integration of a nuclear weapon on top of that missile. So it's not just the missile itself, it's also the ability to carry a weapon. And Russia has that technology and that capability, and I absolutely believe that is something that North Korea is gaining from this relationship.
You accidentally vote in Kamala Harris as president, then the CIA is going to have full run of this entire country to do anything they want to us, you folks. I'm telling you. All right. So Operation Garden Plot. Hello from Arizona. So Operation Garden Plot is basically another one of these. We're going to give ourselves a whole lot of permission to do whatever we want to American citizens against your civil liberties. Okay, so let me finish reading this. I found something. It was called, it's off of constitution.org, called Garden Plot and REX 84. Operation Garden Plot is a general U.S. Army and National Guard plan to respond to major domestic civil disturbances within the United States. The plan was developed in response to the civil disorders of the 1960s and is now under the control of the U.S. Northern Command, NORTHCOM. It provides federal military and law enforcement assistance to local governments during times of major civil disturbance. Hey guys, hey Eddie. Garden Plot was last activated as Noble Eagle to provide military assistance to civil authorities following the September 11, 2001 attacks on the United States. The Pentagon also activated it to restore order during the 1992 Los Angeles riots. Yeah, amen, Devin. Sure as eggs are eggs, this measure will only be used against one side. The other side will be allowed to do whatever they wish. You guys are way more awake than I was even 6 months ago, folks. I promise y'all, I had no idea what weather manipulation was or any of the CIA military nonsense that I keep bringing to you guys. None of this was on my radar even 6 months ago. What the Lord has done in the last couple of months is just threw the blinders off my eyes. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, Jesus, where have we all been? And I know so many Christians that are like I was. You know, I mean, this is all so right. Rather, a lot of people are saying same, like, I had no idea. Don't feel bad because this wasn't on your radar 10 years ago. Most of us are out there living our lives. We're not concerned about what the military is doing in Operation such and such under, you know, like, think about that. It's only when they began to weaponize all of this against us, the citizens, that we didn't have a choice but wake up, right? Right, Amy. Like, it's not that we're bad people or that we're lazy citizens. It's just that who would have ever thought that our government would use the GATE program against gifted and talented children? I was a gifted and talented teacher. Like, why would, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just not on our radar, but it's on our radar now, folks. And now that we know, we cannot unknow. Really important. Okay, so under Homeland Security restructuring, it has been suggested that similar models be followed. Oversight of these Homeland Security missions should be provided by the National Guard Bureau based on the long-standing Garden Plot model in which the National Guard units are trained and equipped to support civil authorities in crowd control and civil disturbance missions. Boy, they got really tiny there. Of Major General Richard C. Alexander, Executive Director, National Guard Association of the United States, Senate Appropriations Committee hearing on Homeland Defense, April 11th, 2002. REX-84 is short for Readiness Exercise 1984, is a plan by the United States federal government to test their ability to detain large numbers of American citizens in case of civil unrest or national emergency. There it is, folks. There it is.
I can't say too much, but there are very important videos to check out, especially the one given to a sister in Christ about a certain subject that the Lord's been told me about a long time ago about this very subject, and I'll leave a lot of links at the top of the comment section. Also check out my Brighteon channel. So if you go to brighteon.com and check out Mike 444 there, and there's lots of videos there that are uncensored. There's a lot of this particular subject videos have been censored. A lot of the topics that I left links for have been removed. And I've been talking about this subject a long time, but many Christians have dismissed it, thinking nothing is going to be coming with this subject. But like I said, please check out all the links, and also check out my Brighteon channel, Mike 444 there also. That's all I really can say. Otherwise I'll get another ban on that, or another strike. So I'll leave it there and say, please check out the links at the top of the comment section, and please seek Jesus Christ today.
The government not only can, but the government does control the weather. And as the government's known to do, they mess things up, and then they simply blame it on a mysterious thing called climate change.
How dare you?
Well, let me tell you something just really quick. Since 2010, I've been making videos explaining to people that they're spraying stuff in front of the sun that suddenly weaves itself together and blocks out the entire sun. That was 15 years ago. How could I come up with some sort of imaginary thing that suddenly seems to be true? And the government's own laws and patents are going to prove it. You need to watch this, because they're lying about the biggest thing on earth, period.
And even more bizarre, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, a congresswoman of Georgia, is now saying the federal government is literally controlling the weather. We're controlling the weather. It's beyond ridiculous. It's got to stop.
This is a ridiculous claim on its face, and it's so easily disprovable, not montage of people openly discussing it for decades now.
The foundation for the development of a weather satellite that will permit man to determine the world's cloud layer and ultimately to control the weather, and he who controls the weather will control the world.
The Air Force has gotten great value out of HAARP in the past. We took over from the Navy and managed it, and actually did a number of experiment campaigns up there, and have finished our work that we were interested in doing up there. We've moving on to other ways of managing the ionosphere, which the HAARP was really designed to do, was to inject energy into the ionosphere to be able to actually control it.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection.
Well, instead of doing a rain dance, we physicists are firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to actually precipitate rain clouds and actually bring down lightning bolts.
Or declassified documents that talk about it, but simply by our nation's own laws, such as Public Law 94-490, otherwise known as the National Weather Modification Policy Act of 1976, which was passed October 13th of that year. The stated purpose of which, in part, is literally, quote, to develop practical methods and devices for weather modification. I mean, that's a law that was passed in this country. It was a program. I'm not even sure why we have to continue arguing about this at this point in 2024. It's not a theory. This isn't a crazy, kooky theory. It's a fact. It's on record. Perhaps Biden made such a provocative, contentious claim publicly just to take the focus away, even if briefly, from the growing tide of discontent.
Ridiculous. It's got to stop.
By means of cloud seeding, atmospheric scientists are trying to find out if rain can be brought on prematurely in the clouds of a threatening thunderstorm. If it can, it might also be possible to reduce the destructive lightning discharges at the height of the storm.
Would you say on the field, please? Give us a field reading that we have personnel wandering around outside.
Records are kept of the frequency and types of lightning strokes of seeded and unseeded storms. Statistical analysis will tell if any significant modification has taken place. investigating the detailed nature of such processes is the prelude to the possible control of some of the harmful aspects of the weather.
A little over a decade later, the U.S. military conducted experiments to bring weather to the battlefield. October 1966, the Vietnam War is in full swing. U.S. military scientists are devising a way to slow down enemy forces using the weather.
The U.S. had gone from advisor status to in-field combat status, and we're not doing well. As a result of not being able to make progress on the ground, the U.S. went to bringing the battle into the atmosphere above the battlefield.
The Air Force employed a groundbreaking military directive called Project Popeye.
Project Popeye was a weather modification program that involved cloud seeding, and the idea was to produce or exaggerate the monsoon rains that are traditional in that region.
The government is literally controlling the weather. We're controlling the weather. It's beyond ridiculous.
How dare you?
Experiments are carried out beforehand with a military aircraft dropping silver iodide crystals in clouds over a strip of the Laos Panhandle, east of the Belovans Plateau in the Sekong River Valley. Experiments are carried out beforehand with a military aircraft dropping silver iodide crystals in clouds over a strip of the Laos Panhandle.
So, does that look familiar? This is from 1966. This is on the History Channel, and it's called Operation Popeye. It's the first time they used weather as a weapon way back in the 60s to wash out the Ho Chi Minh Trail, hopefully trying to disrupt their supply train. But they've had it. Lyndon B. Johnson talked about it 10 years prior, and then 10 years after the fact, we see it in an application in Vietnam. And they're still using it to this very day. Just like the laws that I showed you that they passed where countries are supposed to respect certain boundaries as opposed to not using the weather as a weapon to destroy them. But it is absolutely, without a doubt, a real event. Weather as a weapon is what they're calling climate change, and climate change is going to take away every freedom, everything you've ever had whatsoever at all. Between Davos, the World Economic Forum, World Health Organization. As a matter of fact, let's pop in real quick. Let's take a quick U-turn and listen to what just came out today.
We're undergoing a soft coup, and the idea is to create a whole new set of laws and ignore the existing human rights laws and other laws under the pretext of pandemic preparedness and the biosecurity agenda. The WHO is developing through all its nations, but with the WHO Directorate and the United States in charge, a pandemic treaty and amendments to the existing international health regulations that will remove the human rights protections currently embedded in the IHRs, will enforce surveillance, censorship, get rid of freedom of speech, require governments to censor and only push a single narrative. Also, we will be subject, if they can make this work, to vaccines developed in 100 days, which the organization CEPI is planning to do. And one of the people who founded CEPI was Jeremy Farrar, who is now the chief scientist at the WHO, to bring this forward.
So did you just hear the representative from the World Health Organization? For the next pandemic they're going to conjure up, they're going to take away human rights. They're going to circumvent all the constitutions, all the written human rights, Bill of Rights. Every country, the World Health Organization is going to completely take over, just like the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab, who literally warned us that within 2 years there would be a cyber attack that would absolutely change everything, much worse than the COVID pandemic did. And then, lo and behold, 2 years after Klaus Schwab said that, this is what we're looking at right now, right this minute.